cordially invited to Genealogy Tea with the Lady of Archived History, where we live in the past and spill the tea on all things genealogy related. Welcome to another episode of Genealogy Tea. Today we will be reflecting on why genealogy matters. Hopefully some of this really resonates with you or will spark your curiosity a little further. Now before we jump in, I'd like to emphasize the purpose of genealogy research. The definition of genealogy is the study of families and tracing lines of descent. So that would make the purpose of genealogy to study families and their lineage to preserve the lineage for the generations to follow. Now that we have an idea on the purpose of genealogy, I wanted to give some examples of genealogy throughout history. One of the well-known examples is the pedigree charts for the monarchy. For centuries, family trees have been used to track descendants of the ruler of the monarchy, specifically to track the bloodline for the use of succession purposes. Another way that genealogy was used was for inheritance of land, belongings, and assets. If the beneficiary had passed away or couldn't be located, they would sometimes refer to a family tree to identify the rightful heir. This is sometimes still used and is referred to as heir hunters. Genealogy has been used in some capacity for thousands of years. A few of the oldest pedigrees include the House of Habsburg, dating back to about 1045 AD, the British royal families, which tree is dating back to about 900 AD, and then the line of Confucius, which dates back to about 550 BC, making it one of the oldest lines known. As with many things, genealogy is important on a personal level. It is historically relevant, and it is still prevalent in our society today more than one may realize. Although genealogy wasn't formally systemized until the early 19th century or readily available to all, some of its origins can be traced back way beyond the Middle Ages and back to ancient Greece. With that long of a history, one may ask how genealogy is historically significant. With genealogy being the studies of family and lineage, historically it has provided insight to family structures and provided insights to how families lived. When you paint a complete picture of your ancestors, you may have information on their religious practices, if or why they moved or immigrated, information on occupation or possible military service, and much more. All of this information is historically significant because it doesn't just show family structures, but it also shows how our ancestors were active in their communities. All of the things I just mentioned also play a role in the history of communities and how it helps shapes more accurate descriptions of how communities evolved and changed over time. It may not be the first thought in your mind, but genealogy has provided insight to historical events with facts, participants, and how these events changed and shaped our ancestors' lives, sometimes even for generations to come. I think that a lot of us can relate to genealogy more on a personal level, especially since many of us got interested in it due to an emotional or personal reason. Have you ever asked yourself what those personal reasons may be? We are going to take a closer look at some of the personal ways genealogy is important to us. One of the most obvious reasons is to feel more connected to our roots. For some of us, this means being more connected to our ancestors, the past, and their life experiences. While for others, it might be to learn more about your family's culture. For me personally, it was a little bit of both. Does your family get together and tell tales of the past? Genealogy can be a great way to confirm oral histories and family folklore. I myself was intrigued by this because there were some things in our family that I had heard about that I really wanted to find out if they were true or not. Maybe your curiosity comes from not knowing your living ancestors. Maybe your curiosity comes from not knowing or not having living ancestors you can ask. Many of us have a mystery ancestor who we just can't seem to debunk. We turn into Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys of the genealogy world trying to connect the dots. As challenging or frustrating as it may be, these brick walls are a great opportunity to build our skills. If you are getting stuck or in need of help, you can always email info@archivedhistory.com to see how we can help, and I will put a link for that in the description box below as well. When I first started with family history research, a big motivation was to figure out why my family ticks the way it does. What happened? What did they live through that shaped our family cycles and habits? I grew up very differently than my grandparents, and we had a bit of a disconnect when it came to understanding each other's lifestyles. I decided to start asking questions about their life and experiences. This really sparked my interest in genealogy. It brought me closer to my family, and most important, it gave me a deep appreciation for my ancestors, what they went through, and the sacrifices they made so that life could be easier for the generations to follow. Have you had a similar experience? How did genealogy help you appreciate your ancestors? Leave a comment and let us know. Through the research I've done on my tree, my loved ones' trees, and work for clients, I have a better understanding of historical eras, but most importantly, I have a deeper appreciation for history altogether. One of my greatest honors is shedding light on the ways of the past. With genealogy, it is important to remember that there will be good and bad in your family tree. There may be ancestors who were on the wrong side of history, and it may be painful to uncover. But the most important thing to remember is that bearing witness and spreading awareness for these events does not undo what an ancestor may have participated in, but it allows us the opportunity to remember so that history does not repeat itself. Researching for others has allowed me to learn so much about history, people, and their cultures that I never would have been exposed to before. Adding on to that, genealogy doesn't just give you an appreciation, it also gives you the opportunity to make new meaningful connections. Genealogy in many ways humanizes the human experience. One of the last personal reasons I will touch base on is, in my opinion, often forgotten. As my grandpa Bob would say, it keeps you sharp. Genealogy research is a great interest to have as it allows you to build a new skill set. It keeps you actively learning and builds your organization and self-discipline. Most importantly, it makes you practice patience, which some may say is a virtue of the saints, but let's face it, many of us are not saints and are not as patient as we could be. Next, I will be providing examples of how genealogy is used in daily life. Probably one of the most common uses is it for a hobby, those of us who just enjoy researching and have the curiosity about those who came before you. Another way that it is used is through DNA, like in paternity cases, or for individuals who may be searching for their birth parents. There are also a couple of instances where legally they would use genealogy. One of those examples is for land records when you are looking to buy a home. They often research it so they can confirm the ownership and then transfer the property. And another example is in the courts when they're trying to determine inheritance, kind of like I had mentioned in the beginning of the video. Before we wrap this up, I wanted to share some common themes I've heard as to how people got interested in genealogy. And yes, I did ask Facebook, and Facebook answered, so thank you for that. If you want to add what sparked your interest, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. So here it goes. Some of the reasons I found is curiosity or connections to a loved one, finding out where your family started from, needing a hobby or a way to kill time, And family members shared documents or oral histories that piqued your interest. There were school assignments asking you to document a few generations of your family tree. And then people just really taking pride in their heritage, like being proud of being Irish or German. Now, a few of my final thoughts. Genealogy means something different for everyone, but just as we have in common that we are all human, we also have in common that we each have our own unique family histories. Whatever genealogy means to you, I challenge you to build on that and find a deeper appreciation for history and for what our ancestors have gone through. Let us know what genealogy means to you. We'd love to hear from you. For additional content, check out Genealogy Tea on Patreon. I'll make sure to put a link for that in the description below. As always, thank you for tuning in and supporting Genealogy Tea. Don't forget to subscribe so you stay up to date on all the latest Genealogy Tea episodes. Until next time.